No way should this officer's name have gone out. He's now got a £10,000 on his head, and I believe, although the Commissioner may tell me differently, that he's had to go into hiding over this. This is totally unacceptable. He has had to wait 2 years. I'm not saying that the jury was wrong. It only took them 3 hours with none of the information that you had about this particular chap, none of that information. It only took them 3 hours to give in a no guilty. We appreciate the work that the jury did, but they saw in 3 hours, without all that information, that the firearms officer was not guilty.
I think the criticism the member has should be against the judge who heard submissions and made the decision to announce NX 121, not the Mayor of London or the chief officer employed by the GLA. It was a decision made by the trial judge.
No, my criticism is of you. You are a leader. Well, you're supposed to be a leader. You are the Mayor of London, and you are also the Police and Crime Commissioner. And yet you were putting out things in a one-sided way right from the beginning. That police officer and his colleagues had to listen to that the whole time, knowing many of them know the background here. And let me tell you, very many of black families knew the background to this person. And yet you've sent out nothing but sympathy. Yes, to the parents, I can believe that once or twice. But you did it. I mean, if you thought it was so right, I don't know why you've taken your comments off the website. They'd suddenly disappeared once the verdict came in.
Nothing's been deleted from my social media account at all. And I'm sure at the subsequent inquest that'll be held, the member will again have an opportunity to express her views.
My views is that you should take a more balanced approach from the beginning. You should not have put really the police in a situation like this. If you think about the police officer for those 2 years and his colleagues who were with him, and it came out in court that another firearms officer said that if, and I won't name him, if that gentleman hadn't shot Chris Kaba, they would have put a bullet into the car to stop him. They had a 2-ton Audi being aimed at them. When are we all going to start supporting the police in a better way? Had he been found guilty, then perhaps that's something different. You could make comments after that. But 2 years he's had to put up with this. 2 years the Metropolitan Police have had to put up with this. 2 years of you being on one side. This is not good enough. If we don't all start supporting our police more, the numbers are declining. They're handing in their tickets so that they can be firearms officers. Yesterday in a meeting, the Deputy General Secretary from the Met Fed, Simon Hill, said that officers were lacking in confidence even when they're actually policing the demonstrations in London. They are lacking in confidence. And why are they? Because they're not getting the support they need. And that's what he actually said in the meeting yesterday. And it comes from the top. And that is why I've got problems with you, Mr. Mayor. You should be more supportive, or if not, just keep quiet. Would you like to apologise to the police officer that has been found not guilty? And would you like to apologise for the whole attitude around this right from the beginning?
Well, can I put on record my thanks to all our officers, particularly our firearms officers, who do an incredibly difficult job under extraordinary circumstances, under a unique set of pressures. They'd be the first to accept, as indeed all police officers do, that it's really important in a democracy we have a proper system of checks and balances in relation to how the police are held to account. There is an issue in relation to the system of accountability for firearms officers, and that's one of the reasons why I fully support the review being done by this Home Secretary. On me first becoming the Mayor, a previous Commissioner took me on my first visit to meet firearms officers and articulated the concerns they had because of a lack of support from the government in relation to challenges around firearms officers. I'm pleased five Home Secretaries later, this one is sorting that out.
Yes, waffle, waffle, waffle. I asked you a very simple question. Would you like to apologise to the police officer that has now been found not guilty by the jury? Yes or no?
I think it's really important to support our firearms officers, but it's really important to make sure there is a system of accountability.
You're sounding like a parrot, Mr. Mayor. Just answer the question.
Well, I'm sorry, it's only taken 12 minutes for them ever to resort to abuse. I'm quite clear in relation to the importance of the police having my support, but also me challenging them. And I'll continue to support the police. And that's one of the reasons why I welcome this Home Secretary finally reviewing accountability to make sure they get the support they need that's proportionate.
Right. Well, I'd just like to say, Commissioner, that many of us, and I've been written to by many people, we actually feel for your officer. I am very sorry. In my view, he's been let down, and his family, very badly by our Police and Crime Commissioner. I won't ask you to comment unless you particularly want to, but I feel very strongly about this.
I wouldn't mind commenting on the case briefly. It's sort of not on your recent exchange with the Mayor, but just on the case in general. There's always going to be, in these moments during an investigation, a lack of public information, and we're always going to see a range of conjecture and some of it nonsense on social media, and that's unavoidable. But I think what's helpful is, wherever possible, to recognise that cases like this, for me, this case particularly prompts three sort of issues for debate. Firstly, of course, there is sympathy for a family, regardless of the circumstances, and recognising that, particularly in that context of rumour, these incidents can fall heavy on communities. But secondly, empathy for officers and the role that they do and the challenging situation they face. Sort of having regular coffees with Martyn Blake over recent months, I've been astounded by his personal resilience and dignity with what the world has thrown at him and his family, which has turned their life upside down, when he was confronting a dangerous criminal on behalf of us all. He would be the first to say he expected full accountability. Normally that would be done in an inquest. Many of us were surprised it was done through a murder trial, but normally that would just be done in an inquest. But regardless of that, he expects that accountability. But the third point I think it prompts is, I think making this about race is a sort of dangerous and helpful conversation. The 6-7 gang are a dangerous gang. They're amongst the most dangerous gangs in London. We reckon they've got about 95 core members. This year so far, we're into more than double figures of boys who we sort of rescued from exploitation by the gang. And we all know the pathway, sort of 12, 13, 14-year-olds being drawn into gangs, bullied, coerced, in a vulnerable sort of position, running drugs, and they're the gang leaders of the future. And that's a sad, sad cycle. They're responsible for certainly into double figures of shootings this year, that gang. And our interventions against them and other gangs like them in London is always going to be really contentious. I wish, and I know Martyn Blake wishes, that Chris Kaba's behaviour hadn't caused the confrontation it did on that night, and he'd spent the next 10 or 20 years in prison. That would have been, everyone would have wished that was the answer, but Chris Kaba made some choices that led to Martyn Blake feeling he had no choice but to do what he did. So I think a balanced debate about how crime falls on communities and the effect, and it's these sort of effects that mean that young black men in London are 13 times more likely to be murdered than young white men. How we work together on that problem is a part of this, as much as how we support officers who are confronting these difficult issues, as much as respect for the family.